Flesh and Blood.
All right, welcome to the first episode of Session Blood. So we're going to try and keep this fairly short and sweet today. So we're looking at about 20-25 minutes. So before we kick everything off, I'm just going to give some brief introductions of your host for today, Karol and myself.
So, hey guys, how's it going?
That's Karol. So Karol, do you just want to give a very brief introduction of yourself and who you are, what you play, that kind of thing?
Yeah, sure. So I got into Flesh and Blood because of the calling tournaments. I mean, when I saw people, talk about this 10K tournament, I decided,
Makes you think of like the international in Dota, that $1 million prize.
Yeah, exactly. I thought, hey, if a card game can have these kind of prizes, then I'm in. I'm locked in. So that's basically how I got into it. I thought, maybe I'll take a shot at this 10K and see what happens, and I'm hooked. I love the game.
Yeah, I did a lot of testing Ninjaverse guiding against Karol in lead up to the calling, so tough one for him. So for people who don't know Karol as well, he's gotten some pretty good results in the sort of Arcane Rising meta. I believe, did you win the winner case tournament, the one at Card Merchant?
I made it to the finals. I did play at a lot of the Metrics daily leagues throughout the lockdown, and I was playing mainly Dash and Brute, and I topped the leagues overall, but didn't win the winner case.
Okay, yeah. So and also Karol's made the top 8 of the most recent 2 Road to Nationals. Playing Brute, so we'll come back to that a little bit later.
Yeah, trying to keep the Brute dream alive, but It's tough. It's tough out there.
And also people who might know, Karol's actually written quite a few articles recently as well, showing up on Metrics Daily, and I think his most recent article got featured on the Fab TCG official page. So I'd recommend checking those out if you get a moment. Some pretty good tips in there, I reckon.
Yeah, it was an honour to be featured on the official Flesh and Blood website.
Yeah, it was good. It was good, bro. I was stoked to you. I was like, the man's moving up in the world.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm Kieran. I have played a lot of Ninja in the past. Managed to come in second at the calling, which is pretty happy about. Got taken down by the master, Sasha himself, who's moved on to bigger and better things now, working for the company.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe you're the best ninja in the world after Sasha retired from the game.
I like to think, he's running scared. He's like Kadachi Kieran, he's back, but
Kadachi Kieran.
Yeah, but and I made the top 8 in the most recent 2 Road to Nationals as well, playing Ninja first, losing to Karol in the top 8 on Brute, great game, and then went to the dark side and played Dash Control in the second one and got taken down by the master Jacob Pearson in the mirror.
Yeah, and I feel like this is a good point to kind of lead off to kind of go over the 2 New Zealand roads to nationals, because as we saw, the meta kind of shifted from the very first roads at Vagabonds, when we saw quite a few ninjas, some warriors, and the dashes that managed to. We saw Matt and Jacob basically dominate the tournament.
Yeah.
One on dash control, and Matt on the kind of hybrid dash that can switch between going aggro and playing that kind of control game as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because we did a decent amount of testing in the lead up to the Road to Nationals. So for those 2 primarily with our testing partners Tom and Rohan. So luckily for us, we were each sort of on what we thought were the core meta decks. So we had Tom on Warrior, Rohan on Dash Midrange, Karol on Brute, and myself on Ninja. And yeah, leading into the first Road to Nats, we thought that Dash Control was going to struggle. I feel like we sort of underestimated maybe how good it was against both Warrior and Ninja. Like, we knew it was good against Warrior. We thought Ninja...
Personally I felt the deck was going to struggle against Ninja the most because of the pressure that Ninja can put on the deck, but, managed to do really well. And props to Jacob to figuring out that deck. I actually remember playing him in one of the Metrics daily leagues when he brought it out. I believe it was his second official game, and I thought Dash with like 30 40 blues or whatever. I thought he was crazy, but
Yeah, I thought it was...
he got the win, and he won the whole thing.
It's one of those deck lists that I feel it happens in a lot of card games like Magic as well, or a control deck, where you sort of look at the deck list and you're like, how's this guy going to win the game, you know? Like, it's just sort of a bunch of blues, like defense reacts, and you're thinking, well, that'll be all right for a while, but they just give me so much time to set up. But
yeah, and just for those of you who haven't been as familiar with the deck, basically what Jacob did was you kind of go for the strategy where you have 3 induction chambers and you try to get them out as soon as you can, and you know, you have the core of your deck are those chambers, and you get them with, you know, whether you draw them or you get them with the
Spark of Genius
Sparks
as well.
of Genius. And then you basically use your blue resources to, you know, get as many counters on them and keep on chipping away with those pistols while having those defense reactions to stop any attacks.
Yeah, the defense reacts are critical in that deck. So I think Jacob was one. It was, I believe, the first. I believe he's the first to run the full set of 12 defense reacts and the dash control.
Yeah.
So I think beforehand people sort of figured they could get through the reacts and it'd be fine, whereas Jacob just committed fully 6 sinks, 6 fates, and then in the warrior you've got the unmovables, reds, and 2 or 3 blue as well.
Yeah.
And
sigils and sun kisses and tomes as the life gain to kind of keep your life ahead of the, you know, ahead of your opponent while slowly chipping away at them until they just can't defend anymore.
Yeah, and Dash as well is able to effectively play a 59 card deck because they start the game with Induction Chamber in play. And I believe Jake was telling me at one point you're about 40% to hit a chamber on turn 1, whether it be just drawing it naturally or drawing a spark. Well, that might be maybe turn 1 or turn 2, depending on if you block up and get a free mulligan in a way. But it's whatever it is, once they get it down, they have very few off turns, and they just keep chip away, and like block out your big turns, and it becomes very difficult. But yeah, like we said, we figured that Ninja would probably be good enough to get through it, and also Rohan on the mid-range dash. That was really the deck that we thought had a very good chance of taking out the whole thing. A few of us actually predicted Karol's deck over here. Funny story there, he kind of told us that he had a plan for the dash control matchup, had it solved, so we started confidently predicting that Karol's going to win it, because we figured Brute has good matchups against both Warrior and Ninja, which we thought would be core decks.
Yeah, I was actually scared more of Rohan's mid-range list than Jacob's, but then ended up the only person I lost at that tournament was Jacob. Yeah, I kind of had an idea going into the game, but I didn't test it at all. And I guess it kind of showed.
Yeah, so just going back to your deck choice briefly again, what made you decide to play Brute for that tournament? Because I mentioned now the Ninja and Warrior matchup seemed to be pretty good for you. Do you want to explain to the viewers out there, or people listening out there, because on paper Brute seems like a tough deck sometimes to get through. Like, I know some people out there said they've struggled with both the Warrior and Ninja matchup, so what's some stuff that you do that you felt you could go into those and play it confidently?
I feel like a lot of Brute players have this idea of, you know, of what Jason introduced in the past, which was like 1-turn kill Brute list where you kind of put pressure, block up, and then eventually get those like 3, 4, 5 barraging beatdown combo turns where you just wipe out your opponent. And I feel like for me, I feel like that really, you know, underutilizes barraging beatdown as a card. I feel like when you're playing versus an aggressive deck like Warrior or Ninja, if you barraging beatdown just a single one and then weapon swing, this basically puts them in a really tough spot of, do I use 2 cards to block up all the damage, or do I just take a massive chunk? And
yeah, exactly, because just mention that one for a second. I know as a Ninja player, I've played a lot of games, Karol. It is difficult, because on Ninja you really want those kind of at least 4 card hands, so maybe 3 cards plus an arsenal. Ideally you want everything. So things like a single red barraging, like you mentioned, an attack for 8, it puts you in a bit of a bind. Even with like a really good hand, you're thinking there, like, first of all, one of your cards randomly gets intimidated. That might have been the card you wanted to block with.
Yeah.
And then you're sitting there thinking, like, if I take 8 damage, am I actually going to get that much damage back the next turn? And Brute deck's playing Boneheaded Barrier, I believe Red Fate, Springboard Somersault, all those sorts of things. like a lot of the time they just want to get through that 8 to 10 damage, block out your whole hand, then reset.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the same thing with Warrior. I feel like Warrior and Ninja have that in common, that they perform best with 4 cards in hand and a card in arsenal, and that, really gives both decks that option. That's why I placed the meta at a lot of Warriors and a lot of Ninjas, and that was basically my idea going in, is just to, really fine-tune those matchups. And yeah, I had an idea of how to beat Rohan's dash mid-range deck, but to be honest, it was a tough match that I was just gonna hope to roll some decent scap skins and get that one.
Yeah, so that's the thing as well, where you were talking about your idea of the meta there, because a lot of the time, I think that's one mistake we made in our testing. A lot of the time when you're building your deck, you're building it for what you expect the meta to be at the tournament. And I think where people like Matt's a good example, who won the most recent Road to Nationals, I think what he did really well is he kind of looked at what would be out there and just sort of planned accordingly. Mm-hmm. Things like, if you'll notice from his recent list, he doesn't run the full Null Rune package. Mm-hmm. So he either figures that in his deck, things like the Enchanting Melodies will be good enough, or he can raise them, or very simply that there might be one wizard at the whole tournament, so why are you dedicating those slots against that deck when you can make it better against other ones?
Yeah, absolutely.
And even further on that point, just the way you construct your primary game plan. Like I decided to play Ninja the first time round. I thought I'd got the Warrior matchup just good enough that I'd be confident playing it, running Defense Reacts with red unmovables to shut down their big turns. And then I figured there'd be a decent amount of Dash, Warrior, and Ninja. And I tested a lot against Rohan's mid-range, and it was very, very close, but I felt I had a slight edge playing against that. And I felt I could win Ninja Mirrors and beat Warrior. And we didn't really test against Dash Control because none of us was playing it, funnily enough. But I just thought in theory it should be fine.
In theory.
There we go, back to that in theory. But yeah, then it's hard to fully assess the first go-rounds for the Ninja deck, I felt. I lost to Matt, because Matt was actually playing mid-range Dasher as well. That's something we didn't actually pick other New Zealand players to be on, because we knew Rohan was on it, but we thought the other Dash players, we thought Jacob would be on Control, and other players might be on either full aggro list or full control list.
Yeah.
So I lost to him in the Swiss, which is okay. I mean, I looked at that game and thought I could see what I could have done better, so it's all right. But I ended up losing to Karol in the quarterfinals against Brute, which I always thought was a tough matchup anyway. But that's the thing, that sort of moves us forward into that between week 1 and week 2, where you're looking at the meta breakdown and thinking like, is the deck I'm playing good enough to win the tournament? And that's when I started testing a bit about against Dash Control on my Ninja list and just found it very, very hard. Like the builds that are running the Teklo Foundry Heart as their chest, and then often either an Iron Rot legs or an Iron Rot arms, plus a Skull Cap. That and all defense reacts just gives them so many turns to block out your big turns. Because that's something for the Ninja players out there as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
For Ninja, you only have so many big turns per game, and those are the turns you really need to connect. So oftentimes, if you're starting out strong and burning through your red Surgings, your red Gust Waves, the Dash player is taking a little bit of damage, but just like preventing your Megenchi's triggers or preventing falling too far behind. And then they just sort of keep the game even. And when it goes towards late game, when you run out of threats, it just becomes impossible to get through the grind. So anyway, I suppose, so that was our thought process for week 1. And then we tested this in between week 1 and week 2, which led to me switching to Dash Control. So the reason I decided to go with that was because I just felt I still wasn't sure about the mid-range. I thought I was going to struggle on that, but I also thought there's only going to be 2 players on it. So
yeah, I just want to kind of touch on the whole, the Dash matchup, the mirror Jacob versus Matt.
Yeah,
the
that's a really good point.
At the very end there. And I think, I didn't see the game myself, but from what I heard, it was a really close matchup. And, and I feel like just looking at the results, we can really see how much of a difference, Matt's list getting those tomes in there that really pushed the deck to the next level. So
I'll see if I can just pull up the deck list quickly, actually.
Yeah, so for those of you who aren't familiar with Matt's list, what he does is he plays a high octane and has a massive high octane turn by then, getting a boost, getting multiple action points, and then getting a tome from Arsenal, which gains him lots of life, draws him 2 cards, and just, goes ridiculous with the high octane.
Because that I think, like Karol pointed out, was the big difference between week 1 and week 2, because in week 1 we actually we left before the final, but we thought that Matt was going to struggle again. We thought Jacob was going to struggle against Matt in that matchup, because our friend Rohan had played a lot in that mid-range deck, and every time it felt very difficult for Dash Control to keep up. Because they're similar decks, but they both get those induction chambers down, but then Dash doesn't really have the attacks to keep up with the control deck. That's what we thought a lot of the time. So we can see the 2 massive changes, one you've already pointed out, between week 1 and week 2, is Matt added 3 Tome of Findale to his list, and he also added the 3rd induction chamber. I think with the understanding that in those Dash vs Dash matchups, you need to be on a par, like you have to have chambers out while they have chambers out, otherwise they will just use their spare resources every turn effectively to load up chambers and eventually can fall a little bit behind. So that seemed to be the big thing for week 2, because I went into it thinking maybe the mid-range matchup isn't as bad as I thought, or maybe it's still winnable based on
who gets their chambers out first.
I thought it might just come down to you get your chambers down, you block out their high octane turns, and then you just eventually try grind out enough damage to win.
Yeah.
But that brings me to my 3rd round match, actually, in the 2nd Roto Nationals, where I came up against Matt and actually thought the game was going pretty decently. I had 2 chambers down, he had 1 chamber down, and then a turn or 2 later, between a high octane Tome of Findale from Arsenal, and he got down 2 more induction chambers, and just like that I was behind and just couldn't keep up.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing, is that you can build up those action points, drop a chamber, and use it, right? Like,
exactly.
If you have enough action points, it gives you that option to do a lot of crazy things.
Yeah, because just to run through it again briefly, if for people who might not quite see the combo there, you just often open up with a blue card, play something like a zipper hit or throttle, any boost card, 0 to 60. You boost, you go up to 2 action points, you use 1 resource to then tome, draw up to 4 cards in hand, probably gain 4 life, then you've got a full hand. And with Dash being able to so effectively use all its resources every turn, you can just keep boosting, you can load up your chambers. You can even, oftentimes what they do as well is on a turn like that, they might spark for either a Teklo core or an induction chamber, and then use their Achilles boots to get an extra action point and just keep going. And it's just about building up a big advantage in that 1 turn, so you're just enough ahead basically for the rest of the game.
And I feel like, those are the 2 players and the 2 lists that I feel are going to make a massive impact on the next road to Nationals before Crucible as well. And those are the 2. Dash is the deck to beat at the moment. And I feel like looking on the kind of similarities and differences between the 2 lists, I find that, Matt does have that burst, he does have that combo inbuilt, but it does mean that he has to run less generic cards in his deck. He has to have a lot of dash cards in his deck, which means not as many defense reacts as we see in Jacob's list.
Absolutely, and that's the thing about an evolving meta in card games and games like Fab, because I know there's been a lot of discussion in the community about Induction Chamber as being effectively the boogeyman of the format, because that dash deck just seems to be so good against everything.
Yeah.
But the question is Induction Chamber and dash, does it seem so overpowered because it's broken, or is it a result of our current meta? Because I know at both the Road to Nationals, I think dash was most played at the first one, but Ninja was second most played. and then at the second road to nationals, Katsu made up 33% of the field. So if you're going to those, if you're a Dash player looking at that, you're thinking, well, I'm going in, I feel like I'm confident in my Ninja matchup, I'm confident against Warrior, and the deck's just good enough to beat everything else, then you don't really have to tune it around. You can focus the deck on one core game plan, like we saw Matt do by taking out the yellow defense reacts and just putting in more cards for the mirror, or for the mirror and burst dash control.
Yeah, and I feel like Matt's deck in general just puts a lot more pressure on than Jacob's does. I mean, Jacob has that really kind of grindy, strategy going into it. Gain as much life, defend as much damage as you can, and just chip away with pistols. Whereas Matt does have put the pressure of, red zipper hit, zippers. He's got those, he can just do, massive...
Yeah, because he's got the red line and the yellow line mech spells, or mech attacks.
Yeah. And he can afford to boost, whereas Jacob can't really afford to boost because of all the generics in this deck.
Yeah, it's definitely when you're playing the dash control, when there's turns when you want to boost, either to maybe use Spark effectively or get an extra attack through, or it's very hard to base your turn around hitting that boost. I've done it when practicing as well, like in a game earlier where I set up this big turn and just use a red zip hit with boost with 2 resources up, missed boost, couldn't command and conquer, and that just sent me so far behind. So, yeah, I suppose one interesting thing is to see how people react to this, because I think we started to see it already with some of the Warrior builds out there. Just want to give it a shout out to John, who came up from Wellington, I believe he's based in.
Wellington.
A very good Warrior player. I've met him a couple of times, once down at the Palmerston North Road to Calling a long time ago. But we saw his list running, I believe, was it the full 9 driving blades?
Yeah.
Full 9 driving blades
and 9 Valors as
9 Valors and 3 Command and Conquers. And I actually like that, because it means you don't fall into the trap of just swinging with your weapon with it. You go Valor, weapon swing, they block with 2 cards and sink, and they just do that, or they block with unmovable, and they just do that over and over until your deck starts running out of threats.
Yeah, I think John's list really kind of puts you in a tricky situation as your opponent, where he goes Driving Blade, forces a 2-card block, to block the weapon so it doesn't attack with the weapon again. But then he throws out a Command and Conquer instead, or he throws out a Light and Strike for 7, and it really makes you kind of, question what to do. Yeah, what to do.
Yeah, because I saw him use that to full effect in his semi-final game, where he was playing against Rohan on that mid-range dash, and Rohan eventually did take it out, but we saw that strategy got a good use when he played a Driving Blade and attacked, and Rohan blocks, because I believe he had Tunic up. Rohan blocks with 3 cards, wanting to hit that magic 9 number where you block the 6 and also on top +3 defense reaction. And John just said, yeah, fine, and then pitched and Command and Conquered, which, then left Rohan with 1 card in hand, red unmovable, and Arsenal gets through for 3 damage, gets the red unmovable, and looking pretty good. So just an example of the people looking to adapt to the challenges in the meta by trying maybe different strategies that they wouldn't have tried before.
Yeah.
But anyway, I suppose moving on to the next road to nationals coming up, the 25th of July down at Dice Jar Games in Dunedin. So what are your predictions? What do you think we might see going into that road to nationals? Because there's a lot of classes that haven't seen that much love. I'm thinking Runeblade, Wizard, Azalea and Ranger, that sort of thing. Do you think people start utilizing those?
Yeah, I do really want to see these underplayed classes like Wizard, Runeblade, and Azalea to see play, because I feel there's still quite a lot of wiggle room in the metagame to kind of both Jacob and Matt will be going to Dice Jar Games, and I do expect Matt to play his mid-range dash list, because, so far nothing can beat it. I mean, just quick little point there that he managed to dodge me at both of the roads to nationals, so I'm not sure if my Brit could do anything. But what I do expect is people to adapt to those decks, especially Matt's mid-range list, I really want Jacob to come up with something new, something creative, like bust out maybe his rune blade with a, or maybe even wizard. I feel like,
the mystery, we've heard rumblings, but who knows if he'll bust it out or not. But I know back in the early Arcane Rising meta, Jacob was running a rune blade list that was pretty good. I've heard Alan mention in his podcast that he thought Jacob had a rune blade list lying around. So, but it's
because looking at Matt's list, he does have a good game from what we've seen. He's got a good game versus warrior, good game versus ninja, and he does really well in that kind of dash mid-range versus control mirror match. But he only has one null rune. Maybe there's a wizard in Dice Jar Games who can take him down. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. I feel that it's time definitely for Jacob anyhow to maybe make some adjustments to his dash list or bust out a new list.
A new list altogether, yeah, exactly. Because I think that's the thing about some of the better players. I know we've been talking about Jacob and Matt quite a bit, purely because of their recent results. They kind of deserve that respect. Like they both made the final in the first road to Nats, and then Matt took out the second one where he played Jacob in the semis. But it'll be interesting to see if they look at it and if Matt looks at it and says, well, I can still just win on this deck like you say, so there's no reason to change. If Jacob thinks he should either fix the dash control or move to a whole different class, who knows?
Yeah, and another point that I want to kind of talk about is that, we've talked about the two previous roads but both based in Auckland.
Exactly,
which has its own little scene. We did see some players come up from Wellington, which is great. It was awesome to catch up. But who knows what Dunedin might bring?
That's the thing, because I've heard players mention as well that Auckland's a very insular meta, like where a lot of the decks and the meta choices are based around sort of players playing against each other and who they think their big threats in the tournament are and what deck that person's going to play, that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
So we could see, like we saw in Taiwan, the Road to Nationals over there, again, totally different meta. We actually saw Guardian take out that one, and I believe only 2 or 3 dash players in the tournament. So
yeah, I feel like Taiwan and their deck lists and Bravo winning that one is a good kind of reflection that you have to adjust to the meta. You have to adjust to the decks that are getting played, where the tournament is, what players are playing, and adjusting to that.
And that's one thing, because I understand players' frustration with cards like Induction Chamber, and it's not a fun way to lose the game. Getting to late game, getting 3 or 4 cards stripped from your hand, and then them attacking over and over again. But it's one of those things you have to build your deck and practice for the meta that you're currently playing in. And so if you think Dash is the best deck and that people are going to focus on that, then it's only broken if there's truly no solution out there. And I strongly believe that the devs said in an interview they didn't think Chamber was a mistake. They knew it was good, but they thought there were decks out there that could beat it. So
yeah, and I feel like the decks like Runeblade and Wizards, and maybe I'm not too familiar with Ranger enough, but I do see how those two can get there against Dash, because Wizard has that ability, especially against Dash control, where they give you so much space to set up different things. That maybe, I don't know, shout out to Nick Holding, the Wizard from Wellington.
Yep,
I want to see some some great things from you down in Wellington.
Yeah, and also a shout out to Mani on Ranger. I'm not sure if he's going to the Dunedin tournament or some of the Wellington ones, the ones before the one he's hosting for events down in Nelson, but I know he's a pretty confident Ranger player.
I've heard some big talk about taking down these dashes, and
so
I want to see that in action, Mani.
And that's the thing as well. If you play decks that aren't maybe in the meta so much, things like Wizard, Ranger, Runeblade, if you figure out a really good list and you sort of keep it to yourself or your close testing team, then you might catch people off guard. And even if you're not sort of catching people out with random tech, even just sideboard choices or like knowing the correct lines to play against certain matchups.
That's absolutely something we could see, is that, Matt has his dash list, Jacob has his, and we can see all the players adapt those lists to kind of get an edge in the mirror matches.
Exactly, and you never know, like Matt might have looked at it and said like, okay, I've played mid-range dash, like I've won a tournament on it, I want to switch it up, or like I feel people can respond to this in the meta, so I'm going to play something completely different that they don't know about as well. So, or again, we might see a different take on a ninja deck, or some sort of spicy warrior list. Who knows?
Yeah, and
maybe a guardian if Karol's going down.
I really, really hope that Dunedin will see some of the local players kind of show us Aucklanders what they got.
Yeah, because that's one thing about during lockdown, the online leagues and TTS. It was good coming into contact with players that you don't usually play.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I've played. There's I know Jason Thompson, is it? I believe. Sorry if I got your last name wrong, Jason. But the warrior player,
Jason, from Wellington,
who I believe won the overall sort of Dolphin League title. He beat Sasha in that close final against his ninja. So I played against him, very good warrior player. I know players like Jed, a ninja player, I think down from Nelson.
I think he's in Nelson, yeah.
So it'll be good seeing like different players, different play styles, different decks.
And that's something I really want to see from the different roads is, different lists based on the location as well. And, as we mentioned before, different areas would have these kind of their own kind of bubble matchups figured out, but can they break those into other regions?
Yeah, because we've all heard about sort of the Wellington Warriors, but who knows if they'll live up to that reputation and play it. But
I'm more excited about Wellington Wizards, to be honest.
Yeah, the Wellington Wizards. We'll see. But I think and one of the best examples of that is Sasha's deck list at the Calling, that Control Ninja that people didn't really see coming. I'd never heard of the deck really until I showed up on the day, and I think he definitely won a few matchups in the Swiss, I believe, by people sideboarding for Aggro Ninja, and then him just having a totally different deck, different game plan, so many deck cards. And again, when I had the chance to play against him, I thought I knew the deck, but I sideboarded probably a little bit wrong, and playing against it, again, after the game, you can look back and be like, I probably had a good matchup if I did this, this, and this, but having to figure out on the fly during the game, sometimes it's just too late.
Yeah. So just to sum it up, what is your prediction for the next Roads to Nationals?
I hate doing these because I always get it wrong, but okay, my prediction for the next Roads, I think we're still going to see a lot of Dash players. So I think Dash is going to be the most played deck. I think the next Roads coming up, I think it's the first one we're going to see a Runeblade player in the top 8.
Yeah.
Which I really hope, and I'm going to make a bold call and say there'll be a Wizard in the top 8 and Dash won't be the winning deck.
Yeah, talking about the two winners from previous Roads, my prediction is that one of the two will switch. I'm still not sure whether it's going to be Matt or Jacob, but I feel like they both are kind of going head-to-head on Dash, and I feel like one of them is going to make that call to switch classes completely just to get an edge over the other. So yeah, I'm expecting one Ranger and one Runeblade in the top 8.
Okay, and unfortunately we can't go down to Dunedin, but I've got to ask, if you were travelling down right now, what deck would you be on?
Me?
Yeah.
Probably Brute.
Yeah,
maybe I have been working on some like Runeblade and Wizard, but I'm not sure if I'm confident enough to just bust it out for those tournaments. But yeah, what would you play?
Me, I think, depending on testing, if I could get these decks to work, but I think I'd play either Runeblade or Dash Control with a bit of spice. Dash Control, a bit of spice for the mid-range matchup.
More defense reaction.
Yeah. Because I think there's a few cards out that you could maybe switch in. to even out that matchup a little bit. But I mean, the deck I'd want to play is Runeblade. I mean, I haven't had much success yet. I've been testing a few lists recently.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've been getting beaten down by Dash mid-range. But Runeblade's the deck that, if I had to pick a deck that I wanted to play and that I hope will win, it'll be Runeblade.
Nice. All right.
Okay, I think that pretty much brings us to the end. We don't want to take up too much of your guys' time. So just quickly talking about what we are kind of keen to do moving forward, if there's an interest for it in the community, is what we want to do is start recording a few games probably on tabletop. I think that's the easiest way to record things. Mainly looking at games involving sort of common meta game matchups. So things like, maybe mid-range Dash versus Ninja, or say Warrior versus Ninja, or Warrior versus Dash Control.
Yeah.
So decks out there that people might be playing, and our main goal is, we haven't sort of ironed out the details just yet, but I think what we want to do is either have commentary during the game, going through like the different lines we're taking. Mm-hmm. So not so the other person can hear, obviously, but if you're having a particularly complicated turn on Ninja, might be saying, I'm going to do this is the other line I could have taken.
The reasoning.
I'm doing this, but I'm worried about him having the defense react, that kind of thing. Because we think that might be helpful. We don't think there's a lot of video content out there like that at the moment.
Yeah, especially talking about, we try to deliver, high level
analysis, really.
Yeah, where we really talk about these like strategic decisions and why you're doing this, just to really help players who want to push themselves to the next level, to kind of give them ideas on what to think about in different situations.
Absolutely, and the thing is, like, we're not perfect. Like, we'll particularly if we're playing decks that we haven't played a lot, we might make a few mistakes here and there, but hopefully you can learn from our mistakes as we do too, and who knows, we might even get special guests in to play particular decks at time to time.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's what we'll look to do, sort of 1 to 2 games a week, I'd say, with a bit of commentary. And, if people have suggestions, things they want to see, we'd be happy to give that a go. And maybe, who knows, going forward, if we could do sort of deck tech episodes of someone's working on a list, or they're playing something in their current meta and they just want a little bit of help with some changes, or maybe some tips for some metagame spice, we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks for listening to us, everyone. And if you're going to the next Road to Nationals, good luck.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the results.
All right. See you guys later.